but there are also NDEs, and those quotes I also have in my book, that state explicitly that there is no hell or purgatory. They hear that from the other side. They hear that when they are in their NDE, they get to hear there's no hell, no purgatory. And another one heard, we all go home, and home is that wonderful place with the unconditional love where there is no time. That's another interesting thing. In Christianity and in Islam, we believe that at the end of time, God comes and is judging us.
Today, I'd like to welcome back to the show a very special guest. He is a near-death experience researcher and an author of several books, one in which we're going to dive into today called The Essence of Religion, and the other book is The Impressions of Near-Death Experiences. Welcome, Robert Christophor Coppes. It's
Thank you
an
for being
honor
on
to
your
have
show
you.
again. It's very nice to see you and to be on your show. You have a wonderful show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I love hearing that. That makes my heart feel warm. And we have already recorded an episode and published that episode where we talked about all kinds of different things around near-death experiences. And today we're going to get a little bit more specific and talk about near-death experiences as they relate to religion or as they impact religion. I'm really not sure the word, but we'll just get started. The first thing that I have been having a burning curiosity about since you wrote the book, The Essence of Religion, I know you're in Amsterdam. Is that correct?
That's absolutely sure. Yeah, that's
Got it.
where I am.
Right. So you're not actually here in the United States. And here in the United States, currently, we are having power given back to the states, and the states are trying to take away certain rights that women have around their bodies, their reproductive choices, and things of such sort. And what's happening specifically is that these governments are using religion in their justification for passing some of these laws or for overturning some of these laws. And so I'm really curious if we could just start out today's conversation talking about what seems to be a big topic lately.
There are a lot of people that talk about that there is no judgment on that other side. And judgments are things that are so major in especially Christian belief, but also Islam and also other religions. It's a lot of morality there, what you can do and what you can't do. But it's so judgment. There is no judgment on the other side. That's what I understand from so many NDEs.
And I guess what my curiosity is really forming around is that here in the United States, it is Christianity that they're trying to base when life begins.
Yeah,
So
you
I'm
know that's a big
curious if
yeah.
there's any information or perspective you have that you can offer around when life begins.
That's difficult because in NDEs, what I know is that people know that they go to their body, the baby body,
Mhm.
and we don't know what that moment is. But it's clear that a baby should be born, and then there will be someone in it
Right.
to lead that particular life. And even, this is a matter of when does life start and when do you define abortion as a murder? Um, because that's the issue. And that's, I think, quite difficult because um, it's not very clear. We only speak to people who have been born
Right.
and lead a full life. But the only thing that I really want to stress is that in NDEs there is no such thing as a judgment. It sounds perhaps very strange to especially people who are brought up like myself. I was brought up Roman Catholic with hell and purgatory and sinfulness and original sin even. Maybe we should go into that detail a little bit later, but sins are, everyone is welcome there because we all come from the same source. That is what I'm being told, it's being told over and over again. We all come from the same source, no matter what we do. Um, but it is, yeah, it's not uh, an invitation to do a lot of bad things. I mean, if you go through your life review, you see what you did to others as if you are those others, and there is no difference between you and the people that you did something to. Hopefully, it's nice what you did to other people, then you can feel how that was. But if you do something that hurts or that's loveless, then you will also feel what the effect is as if you are that person. But nevertheless, there is no judgment. There is no judgment whatsoever. And there are many stories of people that say that consistently. Yeah.
Yes, I remember a specific interview that I did where a woman who had an NDE met Jesus, and her report was that in that moment, there was absolutely nothing at all that she could have done or thought or said that would cause Jesus to not love her or to judge her.
Exactly.
So yes, it is a theme that I hear over and over again, and I love moving into the direction of sin and sinlessness and original sin, because that really is kind of at the heart of what's going on here, is that authorities or people in power are trying to say that it's not just about abortion, it's about IVF, contraception, certain forms of contraception. They're saying that it's not right because as soon as an egg is fertilized, it's a life, and that's a life that they have to protect. and I do remember I did interview a man who had a pre-birth experience, and in his first choosing, not his first, but in one of the times he chose to reincarnate here on earth, he got scared and he willed himself. He decided, I don't want to do this. I don't want to feel separate. I don't want to be this dense. And because he mustered up all his power, he created a miscarriage. And from that, he had a life review. And in his life review, he saw the ripple effect. He saw the ripple effect of how it affected the mother, and then all the people that it affected because the mother to be what had a miscarriage. And so I'd love it if we could just move in that direction. In the near-death experiences, there's pure love, pure light. And yet here in this reality, we have so much belief, whether we were raised in it or not. I believe we're all indoctrinated with this concept of judgment and sin. I'm curious your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah. There are a lot of stories of people who have the feeling that they had been there already before they were born. So there is a life before the birth. And I know these stories as well. Also, I think people with an abortion, that the child chose to later come again to the same woman when she was ready. But a sin is something that it had started to come to Christianity with Paul. Paul was one of the people that didn't know Jesus by himself immediately, but he knew Jesus from stories told by others. He was one of the 12, they call him, but he didn't know Jesus himself, not personally. But he started putting a lot of stress on sin. And the point is that Jesus never did that. Never. Um, well, he said he gave stories where people can choose between right and wrong. Although with NDEs, I understand that right and wrong don't have a meaning on the other side. But Jesus tried to make people lead a more loving life, because the main thing that I think with Jesus is that is love. Love is for him the most important thing. So that's why he always chose the side of sinners, people who were oppressed, people that were demeaned by religious people. Also at that time, also then when he lived, there were a lot of people that were very religious and demeaned him and others. He was always choosing the side of the underdog. So that is the nice thing of him. And the whole concept of sin was developed later in Christianity. And original sin, Jesus never spoke about original sin. Original sin is the sin of Adam and Eve. That's where we started.
Right.
And those two trespassed against God's will, that you shouldn't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. So they did that. Okay, that was bad, but it was made excessively bad later on by people in Christianity, where they started thinking that it was original sin that caused that was there, made by Adam and Eve, and that Jesus came here to take away with his life. And the point is that you have to understand that people who knew Jesus at the start, in around 0 or 30, 50 or something, the years 30, 50, they were waiting for him to come back again. That's because he said that, and he didn't show up. So what they wanted to do later on in the centuries after that, they wanted to find a good reason why Jesus was put to death and tortured and didn't come back. And that was where original sin came into. It's not in the Old Testament. It's not in the New Testament. Original sin was thought of later on. And the whole stressing of sin in Catholicism and in Christianity in general is all made up. That's how I see it. It's made up by people. And if you look at NDEs stress, just like Jesus did, the most important thing of love. And that's what Jesus did. Jesus stressed love. He was always taking the side of the underdog. He was always with the oppressed. He loved everyone, everyone. That's the main thing that I think comes from if you read the Bible in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never really dissected the Bible. I have started to read it and then I just don't have the right mindset. So I stopped.
It's a very interesting book. It's very
Yes.
big. And I would
Yes.
recommend people to read the New Testament, only the stories of the four Gospels, because that's about Jesus. And then you get to learn to know Jesus well. And he was a nice person for everyone. He was a bit severe to the Pharisees, because the reason being that they were demeaning other people. So he tried to correct them, but in vain. It didn't work.
Yeah. And I think we touched on this just a little bit in our last conversation, but what's coming up again for me right now is that a lot of the near-death experiencers that I've talked to or that I've listened to or read their stories is that they were kind of like you and I. So I was raised in a Catholic household, and I was taught that there was original sin and that I had to go be baptized so that I could, have a chance at going to heaven. And so I know that there's a lot of near-death experiencers that are either atheist or have really strong religious beliefs. And maybe it's not just Christianity, it's other religions as well. But that after they have their near death experience, it's like they have a new view. I'm curious if you could speak to that.
Yeah, so when people have had their NDE afterwards, they change thoroughly. It's really, they change a lot. And well, what you can see in general is that people become less religious and become more spiritual. And the reason being that they move away from the dogma and the idea of uh, good and bad and sin and these kind of things, because they know that there is love for everyone. There is unconditional love, and even those words are meaningless if you compare to the real stuff. That's what, for instance, Anita Morjani said, and many more people say that the words unconditional love are just words, and the real thing is bigger than that. Now, you cannot imagine how that is because we can't conceive the idea of unconditional love. But so that those things are important. That's what they say. The love is paramount. That's the most important thing there is.
Yeah. I know that I keep hearing a question, so I'm going to just ask it. I know that the word love can be so misused. We use it all the time. It can be, I mean, I have also been in this position where I really believe that I'm being loving and I'm actually not. And so I'm curious, based on your research and your findings, or just how would you define love, unconditional love?
But that's very difficult. I mean, I think there's no one on earth that has unconditional love. It's something they find on the other side. There's a very interesting story from a woman who uh, had her near-death experience, saw her life, and was very happy with what she saw because she thought, "Wow, I didn't do anything bad," or so, and then she got to see it again, and then she saw the details. She saw that she could have smiled to a person in the street because that person was in big distress, and if she had smiled, it would have changed everything a little bit more. So that's also something we should think of when we walk in the streets. If you see a beggar, don't look down on this person. Or if you're at the shop, the cashier, be nice to people. Also, people standing in row, in line. I mean, if you see the other line moving quicker, or things like that. It's the small things. She said the small things are important. It's not only the big lines in your life, but it's the small moments where we have a choice. We have so many choices in a day. You would be astounded how many choices there are. And each and every moment, it gives you an opportunity to show how nice you are. So it's not only the big things like raising your child in a nice way. That's important too, of course, or being in a company and working there and being good to your employees or whatever. But it's also those small things where you can show who you are, that there's love in you. And I must say, if I'm on my bicycle racing through Amsterdam with so much traffic, it's difficult to be very nice to people because they're always in my way. But I realize that, and I try to do it differently. And I made myself smile at least 3 times a day to someone I don't know. So people that I know don't count. I smile to them all the time.
Yeah.
But people you don't know. So and This is because I read that story from this NDE, and I must say, it's if you really try, it is difficult because you have to catch an eye contact with someone and then smile. You have to
Yeah.
be conscious of it.
Yeah. I can 100% relate to your bicycle story only in cars, in traffic. You know, there are times where I'm just like, I need to get here. I've got this kid who needs to be at soccer practice and this other kid who needs to be at rehearsal. And, you know, the world says if you're late, it's bad. So,
Life is
um,
busy.
but, you know, there are times where, you know, it is hard, but I can, as we're merging, allow a couple people to go in front of me
Yeah.
and those things matter. And what I love about the direction in which this conversation is taking is that the Course in Miracles, which I studied prior to, I'm still studying it, but I studied it prior to having any exposure to NDEs, is a book that was channeled and Jesus wrote it through a woman named Helen. And it's all about love. And what it does say is that we are love. So it's not really our job to just be loving. What we're doing here is finding, noticing, becoming aware of everything that isn't love so that we can return to the truth of who we
Mm.
are. And it was near death experiences, watching, reading, listening to all these near death experiences where I heard the same message. And that's what sparked my interest. It was actually all about love,
Mm.
really, that got me so fascinated with near death experiences.
Yeah, you know, the thing is also that NDEers, some NDEers say, well, we don't need to learn anything on earth because we have everything within us. The divinity is within us. That's another interesting thing of Jesus. Jesus called us brothers and sisters. Now, if he is the Son of God, then we are brothers or sons and daughters of God. He says, and you say, we all have the divinity within us. So the, the perfection is already in us. We just need to express that perfection. And that's something that's not easy because uh, our spirit is in the middle of a lot of meat. That's our body, and we have to stand in line. We have to go grocery shopping. We have to earn money. We have to go here. We have to abide by time. There are so many limitations in our world, which is not there on the other side. There's no limitation on the other side. Yet on our side, there's a lot of limitation. And it's difficult to be loving, to be and unconditional loving, what you just mentioned before, that was your question. Uh, Even unconditional loving in our world is very difficult. But we have to try to do that anyway because it is there within us.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what Jesus said.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to jump around a little bit because I'm obsessed with Jesus. Jesus is my hero. I follow
Mine too,
uh,
mine too.
so many of his
He's
teachings.
behind me. It's with Mary and Jesus sitting in the
Mhm.
light.
Yes, and it's Jesus, Buddha, and Mary. Those were the three figures that I saw. I did not have a near-death experience because I didn't die, but I did overdose. And I blacked out for a few days. And then 3 days later, I had a channel come to support me. And I don't remember anything other than seeing those three figures in my living room. And that's where my consciousness started to expand and
Oh,
open. And
wow.
I started to really dive into Christ consciousness. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have this conversation with you today was about your book, The Essence of Religion. So while I mean, I could talk about Jesus for hours and hours. We could have a
Me
whole
too.
day episode. But I know that there are other, I don't know what the word would be, but maybe religious figures. It was your book, The Essence of Religion, that really sparked my interest in having another conversation with you. And so I'm curious about other religious
Yes.
figures that also taught what Jesus taught. Because I do know I had a conversation recently with a friend who is Muslim, and I asked her, is Jesus in your religion? And she said, yeah, he was just a man though who taught love.
Well, he was a prophet. He was a prophet.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd love it if you could talk about other religious figures that taught what Jesus taught as well.
Yeah, I pointed out Mary and Jesus behind me, but when I did this research for this book, The Essence of Religions, you know, I was in awe also for the stories in other religions. I took the major ones, Judaism, Islam, closely connected to Christianity, but also Hinduism and Buddhism. And the stories are amazing. They all have in it that being good to others or compassionate, like in Buddhism, compassion is one of the major things. And then compassion is not only for the people that have less than us, but also for the people who have more than us. And in Hinduism, it's about uh, doing the nice things to others, because that's what is the right way to your afterlife and to nirvana eventually after you break out of the cycle of life and death. And in both in the other three religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, uh, loving others is very important. Like in Judaism, it says one of the major thing is you have to love others like you love yourself. And in Christianity, I think the nicest thing of Jesus was that um, I think he made an innovation there, because he was asked once by the Pharisees, what is the most important commandment in the religion? And knowing that there are hundreds of those, then Jesus had to pick the most important out. But he did it wonderful. He said, the most important commandment is love God with all your heart, all your spirit, and with all your mind, because that's the first commandment that Moses gave us. And then the second one, he continued, he said, the second one, uh, equal to that, is love your neighbors like you love yourself. And then that's where I think is the innovation, because he equated God, the others, and yourself, and put them on the same footing. So, and that's what you see in NDEs. In NDEs, we see that that we are in fact one. There's a big oneness out there, and we have the divinity within us. So we have to love others because they have the divinity within them. But we have to love ourselves as well. So that the idea comes out that we are all one. That's one of the major things that I think comes out of NDEs. And by the way, in Hinduism, um, the idea of God within us is there. That's the major, one of the major things. That's why they put their hands together to greet the God within someone else. Um, so that's the only religion where um, it says that God is within each one of us. But NDEers say that often. And then in Islam, it is also said that doing good, being nice, and loving is very important. Moreover, God is the one who is very good to us. So we have to try to copy that. So you see that in every religion there are wonderful things, but also in every religion there are things that are made by man, I think, and then that go against love, and I can go over that a lot with a lot of stories, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
But every religion has wonderful aspects to it. And by the way, the interesting thing is that in NDEs, there one can see a number of NDEs where Jesus figures. So people see Jesus in their NDE. But there are also people that see other important religious figures like Krishna and Mahdi in Islam, in Persia, and Muhammad, although that's not a deity, but a very important prophet. And I can go on. Kali from Hinduism. Uh, Many people see these things, these people, these important religious figures. So, what does it lead us? Do they all exist, or is it just an image that is implanted in our mind? I don't know. It's I think they all exist in some sort of way. And moreover, the fact is that it's difficult for NDEers to express what they see because the other side is ineffable. There are no words or concepts enough in our language to express what they see. So what do you do if you come back and you need to express something you don't know how to express? Then you revert to the things you know, and maybe that's where these deities come into. I don't know. It's one person, one NDEer from Amsterdam here. She said it's so difficult to explain what is on the other side. It's like you have to uh, try to copy or to repeat Beethoven, the composer, and you're given only a bucket and a spoon to do that. To make noise on the bucket, to try to make Beethoven. That's impossible. And she said it's also like painting a Rembrandt, the painter, the Dutch painter here, who made wonderful paintings, but you get only a paving stone with two colors of chalk. It's impossible. That's how NDEers feel when they have to express what they have seen on the other side. It's very difficult. So yeah, but anyway, all religions come up with wonderful indications of what to do.
Yeah.
Love,
I love how
love.
you, yeah, I love how you explained that because I just recently did an interview where with someone who had deconstructed Christianity, and it was just always something that I never understood growing up, how there could be, even within Christianity, there's, so many different branches, how like,
Yeah.
and there's the religions are, at least from my point of view, is that the religions are more kind of based on geography, like where they're at in the world. Certain countries are primarily made up of different religions. I just never understood if we're all saying that there's a God, like
You
like
know,
how
you
could
know
one
what,
be right? And how
you
could
know
we
what,
make someone else wrong?
what causes that, I think, is that men make religions too. They change religions. You have in every religion you have strands and uh, all kinds of forms. Not only in Christianity, you have so many forms in Christianity, but also in Islam you have different forms. And in Hinduism you have different forms, Buddhism as well. Judaism even, there are different views as to specific things in their Bible. So it's people who make religions. One person pops up and thinks, well, we have to go this direction, and someone else pops up and thinks we have to stress that. So that's where the different religions come from. But that's why I think we need to really go down to the basics of a religion. And the mere basics of any religion is that we have to be nice and loving to others, because that's the way we will be happy when we see our life review. In the religions, they don't speak about life review, of course, but that's what I know from NDEs. And that's how I don't take religions as a norm. I like the stories of Jesus. He's a wonderful person. But I take NDEs as a norm because they are people just like you and me who are close to us. We can still speak to them. We can ask them. We can hear their stories. And they are wonderful stories. And they come down uh, to love. Love is the most important thing. Nothing else. It's the only thing that counts.
Yeah. And I love that one of the things that really stood out to me, one of the reasons I connected so deeply to A Course in Miracles is I don't know how many times in this book it says, but it says the truth is true always.
Yes.
The truth is true always. And what I gather from interviews and all the research I've done, it goes back to, that God, the concept of God is everything. And we are all powered from the same source, which would be God. And
Yes.
when you mention life reviews, it's like God's not standing on some side of the cloud saying this is good and this is bad. It's like in our life review, we are a part of God. We are God. We are all many gods.
Yes.
So we are essentially making that assessment or judgment of how we impacted other people within our life review.
Yeah, the life reviews are very interesting because it gives a good idea of how things are. At least we can feel what we did to others as if we are those others. So there's no division, no separation between us. But it's interesting to see that small things are important. That's what I said before.
Yeah.
But also the fact that, for instance, one woman in the Netherlands saw that she did some nasty things to a school friend long before, and she felt the pain she caused. But she said, what was worst of all is that I saw that I had options. I had several choices, and I chose something that didn't create a lot of love. It was not bad. It was just a choice. And the cause of the choice or the reason, there were reasons for it. But I saw I could have chosen something else. It's free will. So she saw something else that could have really created a lot of love here on earth with this friend she had on school. And it doesn't remain only with a friend, it goes further. There's a ripple effect. So when you do something loving, it doesn't just remain between you and the person you do that to. It goes further. It has its own life, as has the less loving actions we all have. They also have their own life. But that is what we see in NDEs. And, and there's no judgment. There are even stories of people that were um, so saddened by what they did to others that the light that was overlooking everything took the position of this person and said, well, there are reasons why you did this. There you weren't. It didn't just pop out of nothing. So it took the person in protection, so to speak. So that's you, just to show you that there is no judgment. There's only love. Right? And if you are harsh to yourself, seeing your life review, there is only love. There's no one coming with a Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita and saying, listen, you did something very bad here. No,
Right.
nothing of that.
Yeah, that reminds me of something out of A Course in Miracles, and it's very simple, but it says very clearly several times that one loving thought affects the entire sonship, meaning everybody, everything, all, the one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. And it reminds me too of another, I'm going to jump back a little bit, but it reminds me of another interview I did with a man who he was doing ice climbing, Peter Panagore, and
Oh yeah.
he froze to death. And in his near-death experience, he could see the earth and he could see the light in everybody. And he does say that here, back from that experience, it's not as easy to see,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah,
that it
that
is,
I hear
in
more
fact,
often.
there.
I hear that more often, that people see the light in others,
Mm-hmm.
in everyone. And that's such an, those are the nice stories too.
Yeah.
Especially one said, especially people or women that are pregnant, that have a baby with them.
Mm-hmm.
They shine.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also, um, like the reason I think that's coming in too is that, the course also talks about, so Jesus's teachings, it's like in our life reviews, we're the only judge of ourselves, and we're seeing it all from what I imagine to be a much higher perspective. But
Yes.
also that salvation is through seeing your brother as innocent, seeing your brother as sinless, seeing your brother as perfect, whole, and complete, as the Son of God. And as we do that, as we offer it to each other, we actually are saving both of us at the same time. Not that anyone needs to be saved, but that's what salvation actually is.
Yeah.
It's in the forgiveness.
Yeah, the salvation in Christianity is something that's attached to original sin. And there we go again with the
Mm,
forbidden fruit of Adam and Eve.
right.
That's not how I understand it from NDEs. There's and also, as I said, in the Bible, there's nothing there. The words original sin aren't there. They have been invented later, hundreds of centuries after Jesus died.
Yeah.
So yeah, original sin is something that is is not there.
One of the things that I know for me that was really difficult as I was growing up in a Catholic environment was that I was afraid. I was taught that if I wasn't a good person, if I didn't follow the rules, that I would go to hell. And it was through the near death experiences that I mean, it was through a couple of things, right? Like I created an addiction. So I created hell on earth. And then I got sober and started to experience like life and lightness and heaven. But it was through listening to near death experiences. I noticed, honestly, it still comes up where I'm like, oh, that's because I believe hell is real, or that's because I believe I can be punished or condemned or, um, you know, somehow judged in a bad way for something. And it was near death experiences that really helped me see that hell is also a made up concept. I would love to hear your perspective from your research on that.
Yeah, yeah. You know, hell is something very important in Christianity, and we also thought of purgatory. But you know, Jesus, well, he never spoke about purgatory. He mentioned hell, but you have to imagine, or you have to know that Jesus was in the Jewish faith. He knew that there was something. Well, he believed perhaps that there was something like a hell-like environment. But in Judaism, there is Gehenna, which is where there's gnashing of teeth and there's a lot of heat. But that's that's temporary. There's nothing in the Jewish faith that says that it's for indefinite, and that's being brought into Christianity by someone else. I mean, it's not Jesus who said that it's forever. Um, and if you look at NDEs, there are um, distressing NDEs, and those are a subset of the all the NDEs, and a subset of those distressing NDEs are really hell-like situations. We cannot just ignore them. So,
Right.
and that's difficult. But the thing is that, and that's what I wrote in my book. There are hundreds of quotes of NDEers, and one of the chapters in this book is about distressing NDEs, and in it I show that you cannot say that distressing NDEs are only there for bad people, however we want to define them, and that the blissful ones are there only for the good people. And I said before that good and bad are words of the earth. They are not from the other side. And on the other side, the meaning of those words fall away. So, and there are examples in my book, like for instance, Daniel Brinkley, who was really a very bad person, as he said himself. I just quote him because he killed off a lot of people while being in an American organization that went abroad and shot people. He blew up a whole hotel, as he said, with 50 people in it just to take out one. Well, you wouldn't really think that's a nice person. But he had a wonderful ending. And there are others that wrote their stories. And for instance, Kathy McDaniel wrote a book. Uh, what was it again? The title in, in Hell and Heaven Expat. It's a wonderful book, a good read. I'm sorry I can't think of the title at this moment, but she is a very a normal, common woman that had this kind of distressing NDE. And she said she understands why she had that experience, because in her life she had been raped, she had been so fearful of having AIDS. Uh, Many of those things popped up in her distressing NDE. So the idea is that these things that we have in our head or in our mind, our own history, or the collective conscious that produces a lot of things. That's a concept by this psychologist Jung, that we all have these images that can pop up. They pop up in our dreams, but also the things that we experience ourselves. And these things can also pop up during an NDE, and they feel real. But there are also NDEs, and those quotes I also have in my book, that state explicitly that there is no hell or purgatory. They hear that from the other side. They hear that when they are in their NDE, they get to hear there's no hell, no purgatory. And another one heard, we all go home, and home is that wonderful place with the unconditional love, where there is no time. That's another interesting thing. In Christianity and in Islam, we believe that at the end of time, God comes and is judging us. Well, if you know that and the years say on the other side there is no time, where all time is there at the same time, there's something strange going on. So if you think that there is no time, then the moment we die, we leave time. So we are at the end of time. So at the end of time, we judge ourselves in our life review. No one else does that. The light doesn't judge us, as we said before. If someone judges us, it's ourselves, no one else. So, but I'd like to just give people the well, my reassurance that I don't believe in hell for a number of good reasons.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because I know it's not just my experience that people I grew up with, other people who had similar backgrounds and upbringings. It's something that I think culturally, whether you were in a religious household growing up or an environment, I think it's something culturally that we have been taught, like a collective wound that is in the process
Yes.
of healing, and near-death experiencers coming back and reporting their amazing experiences with love, or even the ones that had a distressing near-death experience. I think all of it is collectively healing us all together from
And
that fear.
hell is there also in other religions. I mean, in Islam, of course, because
Mm,
it's taken from Christianity and Judaism. And in Judaism, as I said, it was a temporary thing. There's also hell in Buddhism and Hinduism, but that's a kind of temporary thing too, because those are forms in which you can stay for a long time, though, but it evolves. And yeah, that's the idea.
yeah. And, in this reality, addiction can present like hell from my experience. um, and so, uh, I think it's what we view as, are we connected to source, to the unconditional love that is the truth of who we are, that is available to us, or are we disconnected from that and believing that there is something else? And that's
And the
really been my
connection
experience.
and the connection would be, it's important that you say that because uh, what I understand from so many other people, if people read my book, they come to their own conclusion, but my conclusion would be unconditional love and oneness. If there is oneness, why would, and we all connected to that oneness, as
Yeah,
you say, if there is a oneness, then why would one part of that oneness be in distress? That's,
right.
I don't find that logical.
Yeah,
So that's another reason why I believe there is uh, no hell. If there is a hell, we create it with our own mind. And
yeah,
there are also indications that an NDE, we can also alter ourselves by what we want to see. There's a wonderful story of a woman in my book that said, that was hanging there in the black void, being very satisfied and very happy because there was a lot of love coming to her and she felt wonderful. But after a while, it was only black and she wanted to see something else. Now, when she thought of that, I want to see something else. It all changed.
yes.
She said, well, it's like one hand with a number of paintbrushes moved along and just painted the most wonderful uh, scene, like with rolling hills and trees and butterflies and flowers and stuff like that. And she was so happy that she could do that. And there are more of these stories that you can change it. And also people that are in a distressing situation, if they think of love or the light of their the God from their religion or someone, then things change. That's there's a lot of stories about that.
Yeah. I'm just fascinated with these, correlations of being on the other side as well as being here in this reality. So when I had my first inclination to get sober,
Yeah.
I did go to church. I all I could remember was Jesus.
Yes.
And then
Well,
that led
important.
me to the Course in Miracles, which led me to sobriety.
Yeah, but that means that you had your path. Your path is not always easy. That
Yeah.
applies to everyone, to your listeners. There will be listeners that are in difficulties.
Hmm.
No one is unimportant, and every
Right.
step you make has value.
Yes.
Do loving things. You will like that later when you see your life review. Um,
Yeah.
and believe that you can change things. You have a choice, and ask for help. There will always be people that are willing to help people.
Yeah.
willing to help other people.
Yeah.
They are there. A
Yeah.
lot of them. There's a lot of goodness in the world. We
Yeah.
see a lot of badness, or bad and good are not the right words, perhaps, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of people with a lot of love.
Yeah. And the course, you know, this book changed my life, and I just feel so connected every time I read it, is about healing our perceptions. So we
Yes.
see a world of love, and as we heal, we will see more and more of that
Yeah. Yeah,
juicy
it's the
goodness
way of
and love.
perceiving things. That's also what
Mm,
happens, what I said in an NDE. If you want to perceive different things, it can
yeah.
change. But that
Mhm.
also applies to what I understand from NDEs. You can change your life if you want to. If you really want to, there are changes possible.
Yes, always.
You have the experience, and that's wonderful.
I know. I used to feel like I was different, or you know, that I got the short straw, or you know, all these things, and now I'm like, oh, I just took what could happen on the other side in a very small amount of time, and I just dragged it out over 15 to 20 years.
Yes. Yeah, there are also people, we spoke about that before, that have seen their life before they started it. They were
Mm,
there before they started, and they could choose what they want
yes.
to experience. Like there's this wonderful story of Betty Guaidano.
Yeah.
She is one of the IONS people as well. And
Mm,
she saw her life before she went into the body. And
yeah.
then she could choose things, and she chose horrible things to do, like drug addiction,
Yep.
dysfunctional family. I think even incest or rape. In any case, rape and prostitution. Think well, a lot of things that we would think, oh my God, that's impossible for a person to go through. But she went through everything and she came out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I interviewed her, and I also interviewed Christian Sundberg, and it's very, very similar that our souls, if we choose to, if we say we want to have this experience in this reality before we choose our body, we have souls that love us so much that they're willing to come and play that role for us.
Yes.
And I also interviewed a man named David Such. And when I asked him about reincarnation, he said, we continue to reincarnate because we love creation, for the love of creation.
Mm.
So it's so beautiful. It's all love. And I know we've been talking for a while. So I just want to know if there's anything that you want to share before we wrap up and close.
Well, I don't know. It's there's what I think is important is, and that comes from religions. We That's love, and I just want to show or say a little story about Christina. And I think I said that also in our previous talk. But I love this story. She was a little girl of 8 who was abducted by 2 men. She was assaulted. She was dragged away. They tried to drown her, and then she had her NDE. In her NDE, she met this elderly man. And she said, she was 8 years old. She said, that couldn't have been anyone else but God. It was God that I spoke to. And God said to me, you have to go back. And life is very easy because it has only 4 ingredients that are important. And those ingredients are love, be loved, just be, and experience life. Now, those are important ingredients. The first two have to do with love. You have to give love and receive it. Receiving is also difficult sometimes, but just be whatever you are, even if you are in big troubles, big problems, you are doing the right thing, and experience life no matter what. I mean, yeah, I didn't want to say that just be, even if you're in problems, that's good enough. Try to get out of them, but just be is the purpose, and just
Yeah.
experience life. I also understand that spirit or whatever is very eager to experience life, because it seems to be wonderful. I don't know why, because I don't know how the reasoning is on the other side, but it is supposed to be very nice. It's wonderful. And that's what we do. We all do that, no matter what.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that story. I'm happy you shared it again because I forgot about it. And I love the four ingredients. There's four ingredients, and that's it. And in my 44 years of experience, I can see that those four ingredients are what really matters. So,
Thank you.
how do people get a hold of you if they want to find you, get your books? I will include them in the description of this show.
Okay, good. Well, they can find me at my website, and there is a, if they want to ask questions, they can do that. There's a form, and I will always answer. And the website is www.bobcoppes, and the name you will write down, of course, COPPES.com, and that's where I'm.
Perfect. I'll include the link in the description of this as well. So this has been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Me
Thank you
too. Thank you
so
very much.
much.
Very
I
nice.
think we're gonna have to do another one where we dive deeper into Jesus, because I just get excited every time I find someone like me who loves to talk about it.
I love to talk about Jesus and religions because that's
Yeah.
what I studied, and I'm
Yes.
always available. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor and a pleasure, and I'll see you again soon.
Bye-bye.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.